Hello, and welcome back to this Visionaire tutorial series, The Scenic Route. In this tutorial, we will be revisiting the way system, this time with a more complex room that contains corners and obstacles in the middle of the walking path. So, with that in mind, let's get started. As you can see, I've already loaded the room, and I've loaded some of the scene objects that are here so that we have objects to walk behind. One of the things we'll notice right away is that there are some objects that the player character can walk behind as well as in front of. So this makes this room slightly more complicated than the first room that we did the way system with. There's also a small corner here right in front of the doorway, which we'll have to compensate for with the waypoints. Okay, so let's first add in your basic way borders. So let's go to the way system and create a new way system and add in a way border. I'm just going to add in a basic border straight around the room. I'm just going to accelerate this. There. Now that the basic border's in, you'll notice that as my cursor moves around within the area that we've marked off as the inside, that the cursor for adding new border markers is gone. I can't add any new ones within the room right at the moment. So the easiest way then to add a new border to surround the table is to move your cursor outside the border area, and you notice now it turns back to a set of crosshairs. We can begin adding a new border. So if we click once, then we can move inside and begin clicking around and surrounding the area that I want for my table. And once I complete it by going up to the first point in my way borders, I just close that curve and then drag it down so that it surrounds the table. And then it's within all of those way border points are within the first way border. And I'll do the same for the other. So you place your first point outside and then surround all the way around. And then drag the first point back under. Okay, so that's how you add in way borders around objects that are within the center of the room. This now, let's give it a test and see how it works. We'll just save and run. I already have my character default loading here, and we can walk around with the basic way borders on. Now, you see that I've got the objects in the room already loaded, and I can walk around if I click around the objects. Now, if I click over here where the line of sight would pass through those way borders, he won't move. Again, that's because from the start point to the end point, it crosses a way border, which means he doesn't know how to walk there. So we have to now add in our waypoints to help get around these. Now this is a little bit more complex than our original scene because there's so many points at which you could be standing in that you click somewhere else within the scene and it will cross these way borders. So we're going to have to put in a very complex set of waypoints so that the character can move from anywhere within the scene. to any other point within the scene, even if it crosses a way border. Okay, so let's start off simply by going to the waypoints, and I'm going to start a point here at the very beginning spot, and I'm just going to move up and along to the very first table, and I'm just going to go around it with a few points and bring it back out to here. Then I'm going to create a second circle to go around the other set. Now there's other ways that you can do this. You could make a giant loop that goes around both and then crisscross in the middle, or you can make two loops, one around each basically, and then crisscross again in the middle. Either way still seems to work. It's up to you, and it sometimes depends on your scene, the way you want to do it. Unfortunately, with waypoints, there's no real rule of thumb on how to put these down. You kind of have to test your scene out after you get your waypoints in, and if your character's walking a little funny or not able to get to a particular spot, then continue to add little branches off from the points, the main points that already exist in your waypoints. So I'm going to add another one that goes around this table, and I have to hold down the Control key to reset the node that I have currently selected. So now it's deselected all the nodes, so I can start a new branch. Click once and then continue along. Okay, now that created two loops. Now for the character to know how to walk diagonally from one side to another, we may have some trouble because there's no branch that goes from one side to the other in direct line. It may cross a way border, but let's give it a try and see what happens. So let's save and run. We'll have him walk down, walk over here. So he's going to follow our guidelines that we have in there in the waypoints. He can walk up to there and over to there. But let's see, can he walk from one side diagonally to the other? Yes, he can. And if I click on the opposite side of the table, he walks up and around. And down here, well, the shortest route was up and around. That's not the best way. Maybe I can try and add in a branch here from one of these lower nodes to give him a shorter route. We'll go here. If I walk over here, he can walk to there and out and around. He can still walk and he can go to his door. Okay, so there's maybe a few extra branches we might want to add in there because okay, here's a spot. He can't go from the middle of this to way up here. So let's add in a few branches to crisscross to try and help with that. So I'm going to select this node. I'm going to put it to the middle. And then I'm going to select this one and put that to the middle. And then I'm going to take this to here, this to here. That way, they're all grouped together and the system can decide which path is best to grab a hold of as it's walking along. We can also make some horizontal ones to go from that side to that side and that side to that side. Just fill in a few. If you get too carried away with things, he'll get a little confused as to what he's doing. He might make some really odd decisions in his path. But if you notice that he's walking a long distance out and then doubling back over a path, that generally means you have too few points, and he has to backtrack to a far away point to find his way up. So you might want to add in another point somewheres along the way to increase his number of paths that are there. One more final thing to note is that we might want to add in some extra points up here to the door and then spread them out some so that the character can have a path from the door to various directions within the room. So if we find our point, here we go, and place a marker up to the door. So we have one at the door, which would be blocked by these border lines. Then we have one just outside the entryway so that we can branch off from there to different areas of the room. We can have it so that he can branch directly off to other areas, because what will happen is he'll follow this line down to here first and then walk the different paths, but normally a person would just come to the step and then walk from there. So I'm just going to add in some branches. There. And let's see how that works. Alright, so he seems to be going around all right. It's a little too close for there, but some of that is his scaling and some of that is the way border. What I can do is move the way border over some to pull him away from the wall. And when the scaling is in place, then he'll shrink down so that his feet don't stick over top of that wall. Other than that, I think this pretty much does it. It looks like it's functioning fine. I hope that was helpful. This is the end of this tutorial. Hope to see you in the next.